I'm Jen from SacredWaters, and I just finished the full moon meditation at our location in Long Island City, and I came back home to film our very first Patreon video. I'm dressed in my Venus Retrograde outfit. I love this dress, and I love Venus Retrograde because usually I talk on the full moon about different aspects of the planets and other things about the astrology. But when it's Venus retrograde, I tell the story of the Inanna myth. So we're going to do that today and then have a little meditation on the topic to end. But I first wanted to start by saying thank you so much for being a member of this program and being interested and committed in spreading connection and community into the world, being willing to connect with others that are different than you at the level of our human sameness, and wanting to learn about ways to deepen those connections with others. So thank you so much for joining us in this road. So Inanna is a Sumerian myth. The myth also appears in other cultures and at other times, and very similar myths also too, with similar themes like the Persephone myth. Inanna in other places is known as Ishtar, and the lineage of Inanna through Venus also comes through the Egyptian lineage with Cleopatra later. So Venus in the sky appears as an evening star before retrograde, and then during retrograde it goes underneath the horizon and you aren't able to see it. And then after retrograde, when it comes out, it appears in the morning as a morning star. So the myth relates to the planet Venus as it moves through the sky. And I personally believe that myths like this that appear with common threads in different places are linked to, I sort of like to think about them as the subconsciousness of our universe. So there are many deep and rich layers and messages that they contain. They're very great keepers of wisdom. So Inanna was the goddess of the heavens, and her sister Ereshkigal was the goddess of the underworld. And in each of the different stories, it's a little bit different reason why Inanna wanted to go into the underworld. But in the main translation, it's translated as she was saying she would like to go pay respects to her sister's husband that had passed away. In other places, she wanted to go and pay respects to her lover who had died. So in any case, she was saying that she wanted to come in because of a man she wanted to pay respects to. And so she goes and gets adorned for the trip, and she puts on different items of clothing or jewelry, so a crown and a belt and different things, 7 different things that represent 7 divine powers. They're also linked to the 7 chakras, so the crown she wears is the crown chakra. But she basically gets all dressed up in her very finest adornments, and she's told that no man or woman who enters the underworld can return. And so she gets her best friend or her closest companion, it's very loyal to her, Ninshabar, to mourn her while she goes into the underworld. And she has Ninshabar lacerate both eyes, her nose, ears, and buttocks, so that she can only breathe through her mouth. Lacerate meaning stitch them closed. And she tells her, if I'm not back in 3 days, then go please on my behalf and plead with the gods to save me. So she goes to the first gate of the underworld, and she's told she must remove one of her adornments. And she says, why do I have to do that? and they just tell her these are the rules of the underworld, and if you want to get through this gate, you have to give me this power, this adornment. So she gives one and goes through the gate to find another gate, and the gate behind her is closed. So she wants to continue on, and at the second gate they ask her to remove another one of her powers. And she asks again why, and they say these are just the rules of the underworld. So this goes on through the 7 gates until at the 7th gate, each time, being the gate behind her is closed, and remember that no man or woman, once they enter, can return. So she has to continue moving forward, and by the end, all of her powers have been removed. So she's in the bottom of the underworld. Her sister Ereshkigal is there. She's completely vulnerable. She's given up all of her powers at the gates, and she's naked. And my interpretation of the story, this isn't in the translation, and I recommend reading it, and also there are many books written on this myth, is she's afraid and pissed. A lot of people get pissed when they're afraid or angry, and so here's her sister on her throne at the bottom, and Inanna has had to lose all of her power. So she demands her sister to leave the throne, and Inanna sits on the throne instead. And I don't know what she thought would happen. Maybe she thought something beneficial, or at least she could have power by sitting on the throne. And I made that part up. But what happens instead is the judges of the underworld, called the Anunnaki, judge her. And so in her most vulnerable state, the text is translated to read, she's looked at with anger and heavy guilt, and looked upon with death. So again, in her most vulnerable time, she is judged very harshly with emotional kind of wounds, and she dies from that. So in the underworld, what they decide to do with her is hang her lifeless body on meat hooks and let her rot there. Meanwhile, Ninshabar is outside of the underworld, and Inanna hasn't returned in 3 days. So she goes around to all the gods, one by one, and asks and begs them to please help Inanna. Everybody says no, that you can't return from the underworld, but she goes to the next god and asks the same thing, and they give her the same answer. So she goes to every single god, and the very last one, the father, it's a male figure god, god of wisdom, thinks about it and figures out a way to help. So from the dirt of his fingernails, he creates 2 genderless beings, and he does that because no man or woman can come back from the underworld, so he makes them genderless, so that they aren't limited by that rule. He also makes them sort of ugly, it says, so that they can slip into the underworld unnoticed. And he gives one of them the water of life, and one of them the plant of life, and he sends them with Ninshabar. So the 2 beings slip into the underworld, past the gates unnoticed, and when they get to the throne at the bottom, they sort of whisper to Ereshkigal, so that Ereshkigal can hear them at first and doesn't understand where these voices are coming from. But eventually they, begin a conversation, and what they do, which I should back up, the god of wisdom told them exactly what to do, exactly what to say, and what Ereshkigal would respond with, and then how to respond to that. So he explained to these beings the entire conversation. And what they did was acknowledged Ereshkigal's suffering and told her how they understood how difficult it was to do what she does and be where she is in the underworld. And she's so grateful that somebody acknowledges her wounds and the difficulty and the struggle and the way she feels, that it heals her. And she says, whoever you are that was able to give this to me, what do you want? I'll give you any gift. And they say, we want Inanna's body. So at that point she realizes that she has been fooled, but she had already made the promise, so she gives them the body. They give Inanna the water of life and the plant of life, and she awakes. She comes back. So just before they're about to leave, Ereshkigal says, no, you remember the rules of the underworld, that no man or woman can leave once they come in. But the beings were given the dead body, so it's a little tricky. And she says, if you're going to leave, then you have to bring somebody back here in your place. So she sends some servants of the underworld to go back out with them to obtain the person that Inanna will send in her place to bring back into the underworld. So on the way out of the underworld, at each gate, Inanna receives back the piece of her power that she gave up. And by the time she reaches outside the last gate, she is adorned again in her beauty and in her full power. The 7 divine powers return to her. And when they get out, Ninshbar is there. Her eyes are still lacerated. She's still in mourning. She's praying and fasting for Inanna. And the servants want to take her back into the underworld in exchange. And Inanna says, no, I can't do that. She's fasting for me. She saved me. She's in mourning. She's too loyal. I can't do it. So as she's going home, they see people along the way, and all the servants always want to take the people they run into, and Inanna says no. When she gets home, her husband is not in mourning, and he's sitting on her throne, eating a feast, and seemingly unbothered that Inanna had died. And there's more to that story, because it was because of her that he became powerful and wealthy. But that's a different myth. So when she sees this, she's enraged, and she tells the servants, you can take him. And it's interesting because the text reads exactly the same in this part of the myth as it does when she sits on the throne in the underworld. So just the way the judges looked at her with hatred, heavy guilt, and the look of death, she looks at him with the same anger, heavy guilt, and look of death. So the servants take him away to the underworld, and she realizes after he's gone what she did and mourns him, and she's heartbroken. And his sister, her husband's sister, comes and begs her to please fix this. How could you send him away? So Inanna makes a deal with Ereshkigal that her husband will spend half the time of the year in the underworld, and she will spend the other half of the time in the underworld. And this is one place where the idea of seasons come from. So he spends the spring and summer in the world, and she's in the underworld. And in the fall and winter, the woman, spends time on earth, and in the summer and spring, she's in the underworld. So they trade that way and spend half the time each. And that is the Inanna myth. So we're in Venus retrograde now, and I love Venus retrograde because even though it can be so scary and difficult to become that vulnerable and face the places where we are captive and our fears and our wounds, what comes from that is wisdom, life, and a return with deeper understanding. And I think it's really interesting too, because there's some African traditions that have similar links. The father, one of the spirits of wisdom, the father of the Orishas in some African traditions, created humans out of dirt and clay, similar to this god of wisdom creating the genderless beings out of dirt. And that the African god is linked at his ceremonies. They use a plant called Iwe Dundun, and in Spanish it's called Siempre Vive. And we have one of these plants at Sacred Waters. I'm so thankful to the person who gave it to us, and my friend Omi for introducing us to him. But the plant is called Forever Living. In Spanish, Siempre Vive is Forever Living. In English, sometimes it's called Wonder of the World. But you can cut it up into a bunch of pieces, and there are traditional stories about this, and it will grow. So even the leaves, you can cut a piece of the leaf and put it in water or anywhere. It doesn't even have to have water, really. It will just grow roots and start a new plant. So it's very similar to the plant of life that was sent down with these beings from the God of wisdom. And the similar God of wisdom who created beings from dirt in the African tradition is linked to this plant of life that really exists in the world. And similarly, there's a goddess in the African tradition that is the goddess of certain kinds of water. And she's linked to fertility and the bringer of life to the planet. So the water that feeds the crops and provides love and life and the things that keep the planet going. So these two things in African traditions, similar ideas are present in this Sumerian myth that's from a different time and a different culture. So it's so cool. This is why I say that it's like the subconscious, I think, of the universe, or even like where the dreams of the universe reside. So in the Venus retrograde now, I believe that pieces of the myth represent pieces of ourself. So it's asking us to look at our own descent into the underworld, and the piece of us that's a Reshkigal, which part of us holds all of our wounds, who lives in the place where you have to take away all of your power, who is there without choosing to go there, just has to be in that place, and who can be healed by having somebody acknowledge this suffering, this wound, and these things that are difficult. And which part of us, is there a part of us that's willing to be vulnerable enough to meet this other part of us? Is there a part of us that's willing to give up our power to go there, and even to die? Is there a piece of ourselves that needs to die in order to obtain wisdom? And is there a piece of us that uses our wounds against others, that we know how bad it hurts, so we now have the capacity of hurting others in the same way, like Inanna did? So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about and relate it to your own life, and there are other ways to do that too. So we'll just do a little meditation that's on the same theme, a similar theme, I should say. And yeah, so wherever you are, you can just find a comfortable place to be, with sitting or lying down, and just start to move your awareness inward. For me, I close my eyes. But you can also just gaze at a point, or whatever feels comfortable for you. You can get your feet flat on the floor wherever you are. If you're sitting, then just sort of settle so that you're grounded and you can feel the weight of yourself on whatever you're sitting on. And just start to notice your breath. You don't have to change anything. Just notice how it is for right now. If it feels deep or shallow, if there's something surprising about it, if it's loose or tight, if it makes any noises. Maybe there's a temperature that you notice, or a place in your body that moves when you breathe in and breathe out. And also notice your body if there's any places that are talking to you, something that feels good or tense. Whatever's there, you just notice it. And allow yourself to remember that this breath gives you a relationship to the plants of the planet, that you take from them oxygen out of the air, the thing that they produce, and use that for your life and growth. And then the things that you let go of when you're done with that process has become carbon dioxide, which they take in for life and growth. So we have this beautiful support system of receiving the things that we need, and also a place where the things we're done with become a gift. So you can start to use this breath for now to help you let things go, which is the breathing out process. So you can start to lengthen your exhale. Just breathe out a little more deeply with each breath. And find something that's ready to let go. Maybe there's tension in the face or the neck that you can just watch it go as you breathe out. You can even imagine it, being delivered to the plants or the earth if you want to. And then maybe on the next breath out, you can let go of tension in the neck and shoulders, and then all the way down the arms to the fingertips. You can let go of anything you're holding in the chest and the back, also the lower back and stomach, and then all the way down the legs, knees, calves, ankles, feet, and toes, totally relaxed. And you can also let go of any tensions in the mind, in the thoughts. If there's anything or any thought that you're ready to be done with, you can send it to the plants with your next breath out. And if there's any feelings or emotions that you're done with, you can do the same. And if there's anything that you want to keep, you can keep it too, if you're not done with it. So now, with all of this space that was created by the things you've let go of, you can fill it with the things you need. You can picture them as light or colors. Maybe it's hope or courage or faith, love. Whatever those things are and however they form, also know that there a perfect peace. And you begin to fill the spaces, the ones in your face and in between your ears, the space in the center of your head. And further down into the jaw, the throat and the neck, full of peace. Moving through the spinal column down into the upper torso, filling every single space so that there's not room for other things. All the way down the arms to the hands is full of the things that you need and of peace. You can also feel the chest and the back, the stomach, down into the hips and legs, all the way down to the ankles, feet, and toes, full of peace. You can bring these things that you need and that peace even deeper into every tendon, ligament, every muscle fiber, even into the center of the bones. The bones can relax and be full of the things that you need and peaceful. And this can go even deeper into the emotional body and the energetic body, the space just around you, full. And then even deeper, all the way inside to the place where only you can go, full of peace. And you can imagine yourself in a beautiful garden. Look down at your feet and notice what's underneath them. Whatever's there, it's just right for you. The sun is in the sky just the way you like it, warming your skin to the perfect temperature. Look around and notice what's there in the garden, the plants or animals, their colors and shapes, sizes. Notice the sounds in the garden and the smells. You can look around and find a place just to sit or lie down for a moment, just to be, with nothing to do. And allow yourself to know that this place is always available to you. You can come here anytime you like. Here you're not limited by the usual bounds of time or space. You can remember everything that ever happened to you. When you're ready, somewhere there's an entrance to a place deeper into the ground. Maybe a door at the base of a tree, or a cave entrance, a passageway or tunnel. Something else. There may be more than one, but find the one that's the most interesting. I'll count from 1 to 5 to go into it together. 1, noticing the outside of the entrance, what it's made of, what it looks like up close, the details. 2, as you step in, you can notice how the earth might change under your feet. You can reach out and touch the walls of the passage, find out what they're made of. The smells change, the light dims. 3, you can continue into the passage, just moving a little more deeply in the light, growing even more dim. as you move forward into the darkness. 4, maybe moving more slowly as it becomes difficult to see. Until 5, you're all the way inside into the darkness. Take a moment just to be there. Notice how you respond. And if there's anything there that you would like to leave, you can do that now, in whatever form it takes, and honor it in any way you wish. And if there's nothing to leave, you can just appreciate the darkness. Notice its qualities, what it contains. And if there are any messages for you from the darkness, you can receive them now. And again, if there's nothing, you just appreciate the darkness. So when you're ready, again begin to notice your body and your breathing. Notice your breathing if it's the same or different as before when you notice. Also the body, if there's any places of more comfort or less comfort, if anything feels different. Notice again where you're connected to the cushion or floor or chair, wherever you are, earth. And feel the stability of the ground somewhere underneath that. Okay, begin to move anything that's ready to move, fingers or toes, head, neck, shoulders, maybe nothing. You can start to breathe in a little more deeply. Maybe taking one deep breath if it feels good. And then there's no hurry, but when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So, in this meditation, I didn't complete the cycle of coming out of the cave, because that's not where we are in the process. So what I want to say about it is that process, the integration and the returning, happens over the next few days and weeks, and it can take 5 minutes if you're ready for that, or it can take 3 or 4 weeks or longer if you need it to. Everybody is different, but I want to say that paying attention to that over the next time might be a good suggestion. Where can you regain your power and strength? Where can you rise? What is it that you need? What is the water of life for you? What is the plant of life for you that comes from wisdom? So what are the nuggets of wisdom that you gain from now? And I again just want to thank you so much for being interested in making the world a better place through learning about how to connect more deeply with other people. So the next full moon meditation will probably be a little different, not necessarily a myth, but I so look forward to that time and deepening our connection. If you have questions or anything, you can email us or write to us on the membership page. If you have suggestions or requests about these meditations, please let us know. Your input is as valuable as our ideas. So thank you again. And I hope this Venus retrograde cycle brings you many beautiful things.